But once I started to feel better, I like just hit the ground running, like figuratively and literally. One of the first 5 days I was there, I went into one of their like classes that they have. This dude, Dr. Bender, was reading like something out of, they call it the DSM-9, which is like a mental health textbook that doctors use. And he was basically going over the runner's high and like how your brain works. And like when he mentioned running high and opioids in the same sentence, it was like, boom. Like next morning, woke up and I was like, okay, I'm going to run, as far as I can. It wasn't very far. I was smoking cigarettes at the time too, smoking like a pack of Newports.
Welcome visionaries, dreamers, and trailblazers to the Casually Ambitious podcast. I'm your host, Chase Price, and I am thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Here, we dive deep into the realms of wellness, entrepreneurship, and mindset. Let's build a life we love while loving the life we live. The adventure to a more mindful, purposeful, and casually ambitious life starts now.
Knocking down 20 on a Wednesday is wild.
Something about the Wednesday long runs, bro. I like to go long on Wednesdays every once in a while, break up the week a little bit,
Yeah.
We're all getting the long run in on Saturday, but just to switch it up from time to time.
Doubling down.
Yeah,
You gonna hit
bro.
another long run this week?
Yeah, I also did it because I'm going to the beach with my family this weekend, and you know how it gets. It's like,
yeah.
I want to get out there. I do want to run out there, but you never know what you're going to get when you go on vacation. So just like mentally preparing and making sure I get as many miles in as I can beforehand. So
right.
Well, cool, brother. Welcome to the Casually Ambitious podcast. I am stoked because I took a couple months off the pod. I got a little bit mentally burned out, as they say. I did 35 episodes in season 1, which was phenomenal. But towards the end, you kind of stop having episodes in the bank and you're trying to like flip the episode same week, all that. So it's refreshing to come in with a new mentality, a new guest list, and a new mindset coming in. And you were at the top of that guest list to come in, bro. And I'm excited because I don't know a ton about you, man. I know very top level, top layer from what I know you on Instagram from, and a little bit about from some of the storytelling that I've seen you talk about in some of your videos. But I'd love to have you set the scene for yourself a little bit and give me a little bit of background. So obviously you're Philly based, you're a runner, but beyond that, man, open book.
Right on. Just please cut me off if I start to ramble because
Ramble
obviously
on, bro.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so like Chase said, my name is Kellen. I go by KellenRunsPhilly across all social media platforms. And I am an endurance athlete out of Philadelphia. I haven't always been into endurance sports. It's something I picked up after I got out of treatment for drug and alcohol abuse. I started using prescription painkillers as a preteen. So around age 13, 14, I had some chaotic things going on in my life. I lost my dad. I had another family member in the family pass. And then I also had like my safe haven, my aunt's house, who had a house on the Susquehanna River, was flooded and kind of taken away from me. And all this stuff kind of happened like boom, 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 back to back to back. And being 14 is already hard enough. Getting into high school, trying to figure out your friend groups, like trying to figure out who you are is hard enough without all that shit happening. But then you add in some, pretty significant life events. It really just complicated things a ton. So I grew up with my mom, essentially. The backstory would go as my dad cheated on his wife with my mom, got my mom pregnant. My mom decided to keep me. So as you can imagine, like things were already kind of dicey leading up to 14. Like,
Sure.
Yeah, I was just dealing with a lot. So I was kind of predisposed to, chaos. Essentially, I was being conditioned to live in chaos. Like I said, around 14, kind of shit hits the fan, and I start drinking and start using marijuana. And not long after, I was introduced to like Vicodin and Percocet. That was like 2005, 2006, the first time that I took a prescription painkiller. And around that time, like the OxyContin epidemic was kind of hitting the fan. Doctors were overprescribing. So like painkillers were just readily available to me and my friends. I would show up to school in the morning, and we'd like meet first period in the cafeteria, and there was just, whatever painkiller I was looking for was available. Everything from painkillers to Xanax, weed, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only thing that was kind of making me feel better at the time. Going home was chaos. Coming to school, I was getting high. And when I got high, like, all my problems went away. Not to mention, like, all the anxiety of being a high schooler went away. I went from being like this scared kid that didn't know, where I was going to go or what I was going to do, to like having this like liquid courage, so high school kind of just went that way. It was kind of just a lot of getting high and not really taking anything seriously. I skated by. I think I was more of the kid. I have like a nice smile, so I feel like I got away with a lot more than I should have. And people would tell me that, like, you're lucky that you have a nice smile. So I kind of skated through with that. When I got out of high school, I feel like the fact that I didn't have direction, like, things kind of fell off a cliff pretty quickly. I went into construction, and as a lot of like the construction field is a lot of drugs and alcohol too. So it was like kind of just like more fuel to the fire. And that kind of accelerated my use. And I kind of hit my first rock bottom, I would say, at like 19. Kind of the world came crashing down around me, where my family caught wind that I was using, my brothers caught wind, and it was kind of like, they sat me down for an intervention. I was like super sorry that I was caught, but in the back of my head, like, I wasn't ready to stop using.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought for sure that I was going to use for the rest of my life at that point, because I couldn't consider like life without getting high. Like it was really all I knew at that point. So they did the whole sit down intervention. My brother was like, yo, listen, you can come to Buffalo with me. We'll get you into a detox. We'll get you cleaned up. And you can stay with me for a while. We'll get you a job. We'll get all this figured out. And my brother had no idea what he was up against at this point. Like, in his head, he was just like, all right, I just need to get him away from his friends. And like, if he's with me, he'll be all good. And so when I had originally got to the detox, it took like 18 hours for them to get me into this hospital detox in Erie, or the Erie Hospital in Buffalo. It was February. Buffalo in February is awful, windy, snowy, freezing cold. And for some reason, like, the detox was giving me access to the phone. So like, I'm in there, I'm starting to go through withdrawal, really starting to panic. Like I said, like, I still have reservations. Like, I don't really want to stop using. The only reason I'm going to stop is because my family is like, putting the heat on me. So I got a hold of my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, yo, you guys got to come pick me up. 4-hour drive away. She's using, my friends are using, like, they don't have the means to come pick me up. But for whatever reason, I believe them when they're like, yeah, we'll be there. So I signed myself out of the detox. Terrible idea. I had like the clothes I had on my back. That's it.
How long was that after you had arrived?
Probably 12 hours.
Wow. Okay.
About 12 hours. Yeah, that's like typically for like opioid withdrawal, heroin withdrawal. 10 to 12 hours is when like the withdrawals will start. And if you don't know, opioid withdrawals are like nausea, uneasy feeling, basically like the worst flu symptoms you've had, and then crank up like the anxiety and the depression, and your mind is screaming at you like all you have to do is use. Mm-hmm. This all goes away immediately. So I'm leaving the hospital, and by chance, my brother, being a good dude, was coming to check on me. So literally as I'm walking out the front doors, he's walking in the front doors and he's like, bro, where are you going? I was like, oh, they let me out. He was like, bro, I know better. Anyways, he packed me up. We obviously weren't going to get back into the detox. It was hard enough to get in for the first time. And I detoxed on his couch, essentially. And I was able to stay clean for like 6 months. And that was like my first experience with recovery, like the rooms of NA, and any sort of like being clean, kind of learning some like actual life skills. And yeah, 6 months later, I relapsed and I was right back in the same boat that I had been in, like lying, cheating, really just terrified of life, essentially. Like I would just like retreat back into my comfort zone of getting high, you know? So I basically run through that cycle 6 times of I would get clean, I would relapse, I would use for a bit, I would get caught up, and then the cycle would just go round and round and round. And each time I would stop and restart, like in my head, it would be like, I would think that like, oh, it will be easy to use again because like I'll start back at where I started when I first started using. Like I'll just be able to take a couple pills and I'll be able to hide it for, a long time and everything will be good. But I found that every time I would pick up, like I literally would start right back where I left off. Like my tolerance would just like crank up so quick. I'd be spending, tons of money. Any money that I had saved or had made was, out the window immediately. And then I'm turning to lying, cheating, stealing, anything I had to do. Like they say it's like animalistic behavior, essentially. So yeah, like I said, I kind of went through this cycle a bunch of times. Using has taken me to different parts of Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, down to Florida. Like I've just kind of been bouncing around all over the place as, essentially just trying to find myself, trying to figure it out, because like deep down I didn't want to use, or I didn't want the consequences of using. But I just wanted to feel better, right? Like everybody just wants to feel like that okay feeling. And for me, like using opioids was giving me like that warm, fuzzy feeling of like being okay. So the last run I went on, I had relapsed. I was using like Suboxone maintenance, which if you don't know what Suboxone is, it's like a damage control drug that the doctors will prescribe you monthly. You like take a drug test, you go to some classes, and it's basically an opioid blocker. And it has another drug in it that kind of like relieves anxiety, gives you a similar feeling to what opioids gives you. I've been on that for like a year and a half, 2 years. And yeah, I relapsed, went back to using, and this time was different. I was just like, I really just cranked up the volume. I wasn't only using heroin, but I started to use crack. I was using basically any drugs I could get my hands on. And like, I was mixing it with Xanax. So I would like black out, and it would be like, I would wake up from these like benders, like no idea where I was at. Like car was missing, or like, all my shit was gone. Like it was getting scary to the point where I was like, dude, I'm either going to die, take my own life, or I'm going to get clean. And like looking at getting clean was like such a massive mountain to climb at the time. Like the other two options seemed way more realistic to me. At this time I was like somehow pulling it off to my now wife that like everything was cool. It was like a long distance relationship, so like I would only have to show up and like act right for a weekend at a time.
Right.
So
And approximately what time frame is this? Like how long ago is this?
This was 2016.
Okay. Okay. So like 8 years
Yeah,
ago.
so from the time I first went into treatment, that was 2011-ish to 2000 or to 2016,
Wow.
2017 is like the block of when I was going through the cycle of, using, getting better, using, relapsing, getting better. So this is like the final time that I'm going through this. And I had gone down to Baltimore for the weekend. And on my way down there, I was like, oh, I'm just going to pick up some stuff. I'll drive down to Baltimore. It will last me the weekend. Everything will be all good. Well, for whatever reason, I was like, I'll just grab some crack too. And then I'll drive down. This is this that made complete sense to me too. Like that made perfect sense at the time. Um, and I ended up just like going on a bender. I ended up like in a hotel with these chicks. Like Cass is blowing up my phone. Luckily, she had my location on her phone. And she came, like knocked on the door. Was like, yo, what are you doing? And I like told her some lie about I was at my cousin's house or whatever. She knew something was up. She just couldn't put her finger on it exactly what it was. And I would tell all these elaborate lies to like and apologize a bunch. And she was like really at her wit's end. Like, dude, like I'm not gonna keep chasing you around. We went back to her house. I remember we were watching like a Cowboys Packers playoff game at the time, and the entire game was going on. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna drive home. And on my way home, when I come to, there's a bridge on 95 when you're going from Maryland to Philly. And I was like, yo, I'm just gonna pull my truck up there. I'm gonna open the door and I'm gonna jump off.
Mm.
Um, I'd spent like all the money that I had to my name that weekend. Like I wasn't sure how I was gonna get by. Like I was gonna go into severe withdrawal. I needed to be at work on Monday morning. Like my whole world was coming crashing down. And instead of thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna ask for help, I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. So I left her house that day, driving towards the bridge, and like I don't know, 5 minutes out from the bridge, Cass calls me just to double check to be like, yo, you're acting really weird. Like, are you sure everything is okay? And at first I was like, no, it's all good. Like, I'm fine, tired or whatever lie I had. And then she like reiterated, like, dude, like, what is going on with you? Are you okay? And I kind of just like fell apart,
Mm.
And that's when I finally came clean to her. And then once I came clean to her, it was just like a waterfall of like, telling everybody. And kind of that was like the biggest fear, is like the shame and the guilt that
Right.
comes along with being like, yo, I fucked up. Like there's this stigma that comes with being an addict. Like even like now today, sometimes like I feel like in certain situations, like withholding the fact that I, had a past, just because it's, it's looked at as like gross, or maybe that's just my perception of it, right? Like, I know that, like, no, but there's a stigma that goes along with being an addict. So yeah, my bosses at the time were super cool. They were like, listen, we'll get you into treatment. You'll have your job when you get back out. But everyone was like, yo, this is the last time this is happening. Or this is the last time you will have people here for you. If it happens again, like you're on your own. So yeah, a couple months, or I think like another month went by in between that night when I told my now wife and when I went to treatment, and it kind of got chaotic in between there because like essentially my bosses were giving me an allowance per day. Like they weren't paying me at the end of the week. They would just give me like whatever my allowance was per day so that I was able to stay well enough to like go to work and be able to be productive until I was able to get into treatment, because getting into treatment is also like, you got to jump through all these hoops. Like, you got to have insurance, which I didn't have. So I had to jump through these hoops to be able to qualify for insurance. And then I had to find a rehab facility that, had beds available, which can sometimes be difficult. Luckily, I was able to find a place called The Watershed down in Houston, Texas. Not before I got a DUI.
Damn.
Within that month period. Ended up in the Roundhouse in Philly, which is just like a holding cell where they stuff a bunch of guys. Like, it's like like in movies when you see holding cells essentially, and you like get thrown in. It's essentially that, except it's like an 8x8 cell, and there's like 6 grown dudes in there together. And like, I sat in there for 18 hours, like going through withdrawals, thinking to myself, like, that was like, I think that was really the part of the turning point of like a big wake up call. Like, yo, this is what you have in store. Like, you're either going to get better now, or like, this is what you have to look forward to. So yeah, like I said, I was able to get into a treatment center. I left February 2nd, 2017. I got on an airplane. Used for the last time, got on an airplane, went to Houston. And when I got to the treatment facility, obviously I went through a few days of withdrawals. But once I started to feel better, I like just hit the ground running, like figuratively and literally. One of the first 5 days I was there, I went into one of their like classes that they have. This dude, Dr. Bender, was reading like something out of, they call it the DSM-9, which is like a mental health textbook that doctors use. And he was basically going over the runner's high and like how your brain works. And like, when he mentioned running high and opioids in the same sentence, it was like, boom. Like, next morning, woke up and I was like, okay, I'm gonna run, as far as I can. It wasn't very far. I was smoking cigarettes at the time too, smoking like a pack of Newports. I was like, hang on, once I finish my cigarette, like, I'm gonna go do some running outside. And
Wow.
yeah, I powered through. I while I was there, I obviously like put on a little bit of weight, which was, I needed to do that at the time. Like, I needed my body to heal. So like, I was uncomfortable with the way that I looked and like all the anxiety around that. So I had like a big push now to like get in the gym, get back in shape. And yeah, when I got home, that's really what I did. I got into a halfway house. My goal was to run 1 mile a day. Like I talk about on my page all the time. Like, I would run a half mile out, half mile back. Not long after being back home, like, I quit smoking cigarettes. Yeah, and I just started taking things just super serious. And my wife has been like my like voice of reason through all this. Like, cause like, I still get crazy ideas. I still get these elaborate ideas of, I'm running 100-mile races and doing all this crazy. Sometimes I need somebody to like reel me back
Reel it
in.
in.
But yeah, she's been, great. And she took the time. She actually stopped drinking and was just super supportive of me through all this, with
Incredible.
sobriety, running, whatever it is. Like, she's been there for me and we've worked through it. And so, yeah, now I get after it like a psychopath,
I
as
fucking love it. I love it,
Yeah.
dude. Well, thank you so much for just being vulnerable and sharing that, man. I knew you had that background, and you were a former addict, and I didn't know the extent of it. So thank you for sharing your story, man. I really appreciate that. I'm
Yeah, I
curious, with the
appreciate you
mile a
allowing me to
day,
share.
have you missed ever that mile a day? Is that something that's been consistent for the whole time?
So I got away from this. Here's where like she has reeled me in. Like, I got away from like the constant of every single day. She was like, dude, you need to take a rest day. Like, it's okay to let your body heal. So I haven't held like any crazy run streaks or anything like that. Like, I try to make sure most times, and I'm taking at least one day a week where I'm like shutting it down,
Good.
letting my body repair.
Good. And so this year, I know you have another goal, and I believe is it 12 marathons in 12 months or just 12 over the course of the year?
No, it's 12. So it's just one a month. I'll do
Okay.
12 marathons, one a month for the year of 2024 while bringing awareness to the disease of addiction in whatever way that I can. I actually got accepted into a charity for the New York City Marathon. The charity is called the Partnership to End Addiction.
Awesome.
So I'll be raising money for that over the next few months, and hopefully going to run like a 2:35. I guess we'll see.
Let's
New York's a
go.
tough one.
Let's go, man. That's amazing. Unreal. So so you've run 5, I guess, so far this year. You just ran the 5th one this past week, which is phenomenal. For you, once you got back from recovery and you got back into Philly, how were you able to not fall right back into your old ways like you had so many times before and stick to like staying clean and sticking to running and those things? Like, how did you create and set up those boundaries for yourself not to fall back into those old ways?
So the biggest thing for me was essentially like a replacement method. Like I replaced the time that I was, kind of hanging out and getting into trouble with working out. Like any free time that I had was spent either at work or at the gym. And like I would leave myself very little time to like just be chilling, because like they say, like idle hands are a devil's playground. Like once I was standing still, like my mind started going. So like if I could just stay active, that was really that really helped a bunch.
You have a very similar story to Ken Rideout. Are you familiar with Ken?
I am.
Yeah. He's got a similar story about just being addicted to opioids and using kind of running as that transition piece. Why do you think that works and that transition works so well? Is it just like chasing a similar high? It's like runner's high, quote unquote. Is it like chasing that, or is it just the act of like not having the idle hands and having something to work towards? Or how would you phrase that, like that's a good
So I think
alternative for
it's
people who battle with that?
yeah, I think it's like a multitude of things, but I do think that like the chemicals that your brain releases are very similar to what your brain releases when you use, like similar endorphins and dopamine hits. It's something very similar. And then also like just the feelings of like accomplishment, and like when you run and in the morning, like that feeling of finishing your morning run, like you feel good, but you also feel good knowing that you like did something. Like your self-worth comes up after every time you finish a run. You know what I mean? So I think it's just like kind of stacking those bricks every day. It's paid off over time.
So when did you start taking it seriously to where you were like, all right, I can run maybe like a sub-3 marathon. Let's see what happens with that, and like start actually picking it up and start maybe increasing the training a little bit? When was that?
So during COVID, my buddy John Sullivan mentioned running 100 miles. I had no experience in ultra marathons whatsoever, and I was like, yeah, sure, we could probably do that. So we kind of went out, had no idea what we were doing, attempted to run 100 miles, got humbled quickly. I ran 89 miles the first time I tried it, and that was basically on no training whatsoever, or no like organized training. It was kind of just going out and doing stuff and trying to figure it out. So I attempted 100 2 times, got my ass kicked both times, and after that second time, I took like a 6-month hiatus from running. Actually did like a 60 days of Murph. And towards the end of that, I started to have like the spark reignited to run. And I was like talking to my voice of reason again, my wife. And she was like, maybe we should think about like coaching and like figuring this thing out for real. And so I did. I signed up for JFK 50 miler. I picked up a coach. I signed up for a few other races throughout the year. And yeah, that's when I kind of started to like really concentrate the training and ramp it up. And it was mostly ultra marathon stuff at that time. Like I wasn't really interested in running fast, marathons or even anything shorter than 50K. Just because that was like my personality, like doing the most. And then we found out we were pregnant with my daughter, Wild, and I kind of had to again reel it in and think like more realistic. And the marathon is something that I didn't need to go to the trails to train for. Like I can train for a marathon right out the front door. It doesn't take all day. And yeah, it was another positive outlet I could use. So just this last May, last May is when I like really started to focus on the marathon. I was like, I think I can go sub 3. Like halfway in between May and November was the Philly Marathon was in November. I was like, maybe I can run faster than sub 3. And I ran at 2:43.
Hell yeah.
It was
Hell yeah.
pretty good.
Is that your fastest time to date so far?
Yeah, 2:43 is the fastest full that I've done.
Dude, I had no idea that you had the ultra roots. Like you kind of got into the ultra game before the marathon game. Had no idea that.
Yeah. I was really taking it seriously there for a bit. Like I still would like to. My goal before we found out we were pregnant was to do the Pennsylvania Triple Crown, which is Heiner 50K, World's End 100K, and Eastern States 100, all in the same year. And then you can go ahead and take it a step further and like the blacklist by doing the Black Forest 100K, which is a serious 100K that starts at midnight and you run through the night, and it's like late October, so it's like rainy and muddy, and it's legit.
Nice. So do you have plans to continue to go down that route after this whole like 12 months of marathon after that and see where that takes you, or what's the plan right now?
So the plan right now is to finish out the 12 for this year. Next year I'll probably still hang around the marathon until the baby is like a little bit more self-sufficient, and then I would definitely like to tackle some of like, or 1 or 2, I guess we'll see, of like the more serious 100-mile ultra trail races, something, because like I said, I have completed a 100-miler. I won the Loopy Looper 24-hour, not last year but the year before that. Ran 108 miles in 23 hours and 25 minutes, and but that's it. Like a loop course on a paved path is cool, but it's nothing like running 100 miles in the mountains.
It's not
North
Eastern
Carolina.
States or something like that. Yeah, for sure. Well, I love that, dude. I love that you have, and that's why I love running so much, is because I don't feel dialed into like I'm a marathoner or I'm an ultra runner. It's like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. I can go run a fast 5K if I want to, and that's the beauty of it, right? And it's like there's different seasons, like I just got out of a marathon block because I was marathon training for Boston, and it was great. I think marathon training is the hardest out of anything. I think marathon training is harder than 100 training, like easily. Because it's just the slow slog of like going out and getting it. It's more time on feet, whereas marathon, you're just like out on the track sucking wind and going through it. So totally different, but that's why I love not being dialed in. So when you're like, I got all these different goals, I'm the same way, bro. I love it.
Yeah, I follow you. I see what you got going on. I'm like, man, this guy is getting after it.
Yeah, well, the next question I was going to ask you is because so I had the 3 back-to-back. I had 50-miler, then I had Boston 26, and then I had a 100-miler the following month. Going back-to-back, just so much fatigue, bro. Like I was just feeling it on that last one quite a bit. I'm curious how it's been for you 5 months or 5 marathons in. How's the bounce back been? How's the going, straight into another taper? How has your body recovered through that so far?
So if you look at my Strava, it is kind of like my weekly kind of like climb and then taper, essentially in like 3. Well, if I'm doing it a month, it's like a 3-week cycle that I'm running. On that 4th week, I'll taper. But I haven't really. So I guess 3 out of the 5 races that I've run have been like easy pace. I didn't go out and like kill myself, 2 of them I hit, well, we'll say 2, and I guess 2.5, because I did race the Two Rivers Marathon in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. I had gotten the flu on Tuesday and raced on Sunday and was really humbled. I did a lot of walking at that race. But yeah, my body has recovered relatively well. I mean, I know when to hit the gas and when to, pull back and when to work out and when to just run easy miles. I kind of am good at just like listening to my body. I mean, there's times when I run when I probably shouldn't, but I never like push hard when I shouldn't. Like if my body's telling me like, you don't have it today, like, okay, then we're not going to do 8x800s, at marathon pace. We'll just, do an easy 10 and try to hit it tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm curious, man. And you mentioned your baby girl, Wild. She's absolutely beautiful, by the way. I
Thank
love when
you.
you're sharing her on IG. How drastically did your life change as a runner and as an athlete after that happened? Did you have to change quite a bit, or was it an easy transition? Talk to me a little bit about that.
It was a tough transition. It was just being there for Cass really that was like the big part. Like obviously I had to back off of training a bit, but as you know, like I talked about, like really running has been my recovery. Like that's what has like kept me sane for the 7 years prior. So when it came to that point, it was like I was like kind of panicking a bit because I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I need to move my body some sort, or else, like, in my head, it was like, or else I'm going to use, like, what am I going to do without this? Like, I've leaned on this for so long. Like, this is important to me. And it just took some time to like figure it out. Like, there was some days where like it just didn't happen, like I was looking back at my Strava in like the month of May last year, like I ran like 35 miles or something like that, where I usually like average around like, between 200-300 miles a month. So yeah, it just took like understanding on both of our parts. Like there was definitely some disagreements in there, and but we worked through it and figured it out, and now we got a pretty good system down. And now that she's old enough to go in the jogger, like that makes a big difference too, because I don't have to, I could just throw her in the jogger and okay, mom gets a break from the baby and I get to go do what I want to do. So
I forgot to ask you, are all of the marathons that you're running, are they sanctioned marathons, or some of them are just self-supported, kind of going out and doing 26?
the goal was to do 12 sanctioned events in 2024. The month of May got a little bit crazy. We were down in Florida for Cass's little brother's graduation, the baby's birthday. Like there was just kind of a lot going on this month. So I did make the decision to just do an, self-supported marathon around Philly. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Kensington, Philadelphia. It's like an open air drug market. It's like if you live in Philly, like that's where you're going to cop. And like I spent a lot of time going down there copping. It's really just like a lot of like lost souls there. Like you get like the like people slumped over, like that idea of like a heroin addict, like it's just riddled with that down there. But so I added like running through there on my route. I stopped like where I had gotten picked up for that DUI that I told you about. So like I kind of made it sentimental to me. But the rest of everything else on the calendar is sanctioned events.
Cool.
I'll tell you what, it makes it a little easier running when you got a big group of people that are out there running with you.
Yeah, it does, man. A couple cowbells don't hurt either. Little crowd never hurt, Well, cool. I think that's a good transition, man. I'd love to start talking about your personal brand and building that and, the documentation and the storytelling. So when did you start to actually tell your story and realize, hey, I have something to share? Like there is so much value in my story that can benefit, people going through similar circumstances, or people, maybe they aren't drug addicts. Maybe they just need an outlet, and this can be, a way for them to unplug and find somebody that they resonate with. When did you make the decision to say, all right, I'm going to start sharing and documenting the journey?
So I actually pulled the trigger on it, I think maybe at my 5-year mark. So like 2 years ago, I would say. Prior to that, like I kind of like, again, my like voice of reason was like, yo, you got to share your story. You got to share your story. Like, you got to get out and tell people about it. And I was just kind of like, again, like the stigma that comes along with addiction and being an addict was outweighing, what I had.
You're good. You're good.
Got two German Shepherds. Um, yeah, it was just kind of outweighing the push I had to share my story. Like, I was essentially scared to put it out there. I didn't want people to look at me in a negative light or, think me in a certain way. But Cass would hear me like on the phone with some of my buddies that were like still in it and trying to figure out their life, and like me, like, motivating them and like giving them advice and all this stuff. She's like, listen, that's all you have to do is start doing that and record it and share it on your Instagram. So it's been a long journey of kind of figuring out, how to be successful on Instagram. Not that I'm successful by any means, but my wife has a good size following. She has like 140,000 followers, I think, on Instagram, and something similar on TikTok. So she has been like a coach along the way, kind of pointing me in the right direction. And we're kind of, bouncing ideas off each other, trying to figure out like the best way to get that story across, and still kind of just share being who I am today and share running and kind of just sprinkle in some of some of my story in there where I can.
Yeah, I love that. I actually, I found her profile when I was just doing some digging on you just to learn as much as I can about you. And I saw that she had a good size follow. And I was curious if who got who into it. It sounds like she definitely got you into it and has coached you up a little bit. And that leads me to my next question about, like, I think you have a very natural storytelling ability. Obviously, you've been doing it for 2 years now, so you've refined that over time. Is that something that came naturally to you, or is that something that working with Cass and like continuously, sharpening that tool has led to that over the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's definitely been something that I've been sharpening and working on. Cass gives me tips constantly, like, yo, you got to stop saying or you got to stop saying or like the the little things that that I probably still do a little too much of. And
Yep.
once I listen
Me
to things
too,
back,
bro.
I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying now, and then I
Yeah.
become like cognizant of it, and I try to work on it the best that I can. But yeah, it's been a journey, just repetitions. The more reps you do, the better you get at it.
Yeah, I'm curious. This next one is twofold. When you make a video, do you kind of have an end person in mind who you're like speaking to when you decide to make one? And then what would be your ultimate goal with like the content that you're kind of creating?
So I'll tell you what, I need to get better at like coming up with an idea, potentially writing it down, like coming up with a script or what I want to shoot and then shooting it. I feel like things would be a lot more organized that way. Whereas like a lot of the times, like the stuff that I create is just boom, comes to me. And it's just like, on a whim. Like the video I just posted recently of me like running and kind of sharing a little bit, like I didn't even know that I had that in me. Like my buddy just started filming me running and I just kind of like, it just came out, and so yeah, I don't really have, I'm just kind of being me.
Yeah.
Authentic, whoever it goes to and whoever resonates with it, like, I hope they appreciate it, but there's really most of the time there's no thought in like, where's this going to land?
Are you primarily on Instagram, or are you also on YouTube and TikTok and some of these other platforms?
Yeah, so I use the technique of basically just like casting out everywhere if I can. Like if I'm posting it, so not everything that goes on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube will go onto Instagram. Instagram is kind of more like my cream of the crop stuff that I'll post. But everything I post on Instagram also goes to the other platforms. So like I kind of will create some stuff that I would say like I'll test it out on those other platforms, see how it does. And if it does well, then I'll bring it to Instagram. But yeah, it's kind of just like experimental stuff that goes on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. And I have like 40,000 on TikTok followers. I have like 40,000 on Facebook. And then I have like 200 followers on YouTube, but we're working on it.
Working on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the tough one, bro. That's the one where all like, I should be putting in work on YouTube and I'm not. There's so many of us in the same. I keep telling myself I'm gonna like crank up the YouTube. Still haven't done it. But
I mean, it's tough. And even if it's just like, I've been posting a lot of just the shorts to YouTube or Reels, whatever they're called over there. And I did attempt to create some long form stuff. I was really leaning into it at the beginning of the year, and I was like, I fell off, so I need to get back into that. But I was just recently, I did a Murph on Monday, and I don't know, do you know Andrew Linder? Just did the
yeah, bro. He just ran across the country. Yeah.
And he was telling me that his YouTube, like out of nowhere, kind of blew up, and he's got a nice little following over there. And he was like, "Yeah, bro, you just got to keep at it, keep on it. It'll come."
Yeah, he's the man. I actually know him through Devin Levesque. You know Devin, right? He just climbed Everest. Well, yeah. So Devin has this inner circle program, and I think Linder was in it last year, I want to say. Obviously, we're both in the running space, so kind of linked up with him through that. But saw he just ran across the country. I mean, I can't even fathom doing that, man. I can't even fathom. Like, it's funny, we're talking about marathon, like 12 marathons in 12 months. That's hard, but like running
40 miles a
40,
day
50 a day, it's crazy.
with a weight vest on.
With the weight vest. I keep forgetting about the weight vest too. Wild.
You should definitely have him on. I was talking to him, and he would definitely be a good one to have on.
Yeah, I 100% will. I'll reach out to him probably right after this while it's on my mind. I'm curious. You kind of nailed it. You know, everybody's going to say, and I would say the same thing if somebody says, you know, what is it? Some advice for people building a personal brand in the fitness space is authenticity. First and foremost, authenticity. Just be unapologetically yourself. Beyond that, what would you kind of advise people, and what do you and your wife kind of jam on as far as strategies and best practices in building your personal brands in the fitness space?
The biggest thing for me is to just create, period. Like, just start creating stuff and figure it out from there. Like, you're going to have to put stuff out. You're going to have to fail. And I mean, that's just how you learn to do it. Like, if you're constantly waiting for like the perfect video or the perfect scenario, you know, it's just never going to happen. So like, start creating stuff, put it out there, see what the response is, and kind of build off of that. It's just, you know, stacking bricks along the way, figuring out your way, and figure out where you want to be at.
Stacking bricks. I love it. Let's talk about Recovery Run Club. So you founded this run club. I assume the name is through your journey of recovery and all of that. Tell me a little bit about how this came to be, when you started it, and what it's all about.
Yeah, so we launched Recovery Run Club just this last year. Our first run was in March. And my original plan was to reach people in early recovery and kind of bridge the gap between them and the fitness community. Like, you know, I wish I had someone that would have come to me a long time ago and been like, yo, why don't you just try to come out for a run? Like, while I was clean, you know, during one of those times when I had figured it out for a little bit, like that might have, you know, made a difference earlier on. So my goal is to target early recovery, but everyone is welcome. All faces, all paces. You could be in recovery from absolutely anything: eating disorder, domestic violence, whatever your thing is. We welcome you to come out, to move your body. We'll get after it together. And I'm hoping to eventually. Right now we meet once a month, but I'm hoping to in the future definitely ramp that up to maybe 2-3 times a month, and continue to build, and hopefully we get a pretty good sized community here in Philadelphia.
I love that. I love that. I'm trying to build up our little run group myself. It's a lot of work, man. It's not that easy. And I talked to somebody yesterday who's director of Newport Beach Run Club. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Huge run club out in California. Like, I'm talking 350 people show up to these runs.
Wow.
It's wild. But it seems like the key is like the run club and the run aspect is just a a piece of it, right? Like that's what's bringing you together, but there's so much more in the social capacity and the emotional capacity of being able to connect. And like, it's about the coffee shop after and like going to get a group dinner after and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's where I'm
It's
trying
like
to
where the
plug.
bonding actually happens.
Yep. And the run club's just like a fraction of the percentage of what actually is kind of everything is built around. So trying to, we'll jam through some of that. I'm trying to build the thing out down here myself, but I'm curious what the run scene in Philly is like. Is it like, when I think about cities with phenomenal run scenes, I think of Austin, Texas. I think of New York. Philly doesn't necessarily come to mind, but I could be wrong. Maybe there's a phenomenal run scene there.
Philly has a legit run scene. Like our Central Park essentially would be like Kelly Drive, Lloyd Hall. There's an 8-mile loop down there, and like Saturday mornings in the spring or even this time of year, it is mobbed. There's like everyone is down there. There's run clubs meeting. Like there's guys getting ready to, get on their bikes. People are running. Run clubs are meeting. There's a little cafe down there, and it's good. There's a lot of people here that are in the fitness space, either that they're starting to transition. I notice a lot of people are transitioning into high rocks right now. It's kind of like the new fad thing. But obviously it still requires running. So there's people getting ready for triathlon, high rocks, marathon training. And like this time of year is when it's like really starting to ramp up again. It gets a little weird during the wintertime when it's cold. Nobody wants to come outside. But like right now, the run community is just thriving here in Philadelphia.
Does high rocks intrigue you?
It absolutely does. So prior to the pandemic, I was like into competitive CrossFit.
Okay.
So like I was, I spent all my time in a CrossFit gym essentially. And at that point, like I wish high rocks was like a fad then, because like I was in perfect shape for high rocks. Like I would have crushed that. But I would consider doing a high rocks in the future. I don't know. I am definitely indulged in the marathon as we speak. So like a lot of my energy goes towards that. I don't know. I'd consider. I have a couple of my good buddies, Justin Rubin. He's an animal. He's getting ready to compete in New York this weekend. Then he's going to France. So there's a couple guys around me that are like kind of nudging me to get into high rocks and triathlon. They're like, yo, you got to get a bike.
I think I know who Justin is from BPN when I used to be an investor with them. He's a beast, dude. I follow him on Strava and I just see his runs. He might go long, but I don't see him go long too much. I see him go like 6-7, but it's like 6:30 every time. I'm like, bro.
Yeah, so he hasn't really been going out. Like towards the end of last summer, I would drag him through some, like he was getting ready for New York. I'd be like, yo, come out for a long run. He'd be like, bro, what was that?
I love it. What does your mileage per week look like right now on average?
I typically am hovering right around 80 miles a week. So the last like few months, I really haven't been taking that rest day. I've been making sure I take my easy days really
Super
easy.
Yep.
Yeah, like not pushing hard at all. So I typically will I do like 4 easy runs. That's usually like 10-mile days. And I'll try to do 2 workouts. And then one day we'll kind of be open to, whatever. If I can squeeze in another workout, then I will. If not, then I'll just hit another easy run. But yeah, I'm looking at 80. I'd like to ramp up in this next, like getting ready for New York. I'd like to get in that like 100-mile range probably for peak week. I'd like to dabble in like the double threshold stuff, and really just kind of target that intensity and really just try to get that like turnover, like that fast turnover in the legs. Like I just ran Broad Street Run, which is a well-known 10-miler here in Philly. I ran that in 55:37. So it was like a 5:32, I think, minute per mile pace.
Yeah. Flying.
Cruising, yeah, it was good.
Nice, man. And what does how much of a role does strength training play a part in your training right now?
Huge. So I have like a little home gym here, just like a squat rack, some rogue plates, just some 40-pound dumbbells, nothing crazy. I got like a sandbag, my plate carrier. So really the strength training for me is just like full range of motion stuff. I'll do like some plyometric stuff, but I like to do my calisthenics just to like keep like a strong base, strong body. And then like I will lift a squat, bench, deadlift, nothing crazy. Like really just like to get full range of motion, get the body moving in some different directions and kind of stay just like generally strong. A perfect week like will be like 5 weekdays. I wake up at 4. I get like 30 to 45 minutes of strength training in before I go out for my run.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come back, refuel. And my wife is trying to get into running now. So like she'll try to do like 2-3 miles. I'll kind of go do a little shakeout with her. And yeah.
Something about that back-to-back in the morning, like knocking the lift out and the run out and just being like, I have the rest of my day to go. I just did the hardest 2 things I got to do today. I got the rest of the day. Let's go.
That's it.
I love it. Are you a Eagles fan?
Yes. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Let's fucking go. I had to pull that one out of you. It's going to be a good year, man. I'm excited.
Are you an Eagles fan?
Yeah, I'm a Birds fan. I'm coming up with, so I was actually born in Doylestown, outside of Philly. So, you're familiar?
I was gonna say, I thought you were like, I knew you were from, I thought that you were like living like in Jersey or somewhere around here. I didn't know that you,
no, I'm in Charlotte. I'm down in North Carolina, born in the North, raised in the South. So I got a little bit of feistiness from the Philly people, but I got a little bit of the southern boy charm down here from the Carolinas as well. So the best of both worlds, man. But my wife and I are coming up for a game, no doubt, this year. Maybe it'll be the Panthers game because she used to be a cheerleader for the Panthers, so she's still got a little connection there. So we'll link up, maybe go see a game or something this year because we like to go up at least once a year or try to come up to Philly. So I'd love to link up when we come up there.
That's what's up. Yeah, my wife is the in-game or one of the in-game arena hosts for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh, sick.
And she was previously one of the Ice Girls, which is like their cheerleaders, for the hockey team. So she's into the like dance and cheerleading space too.
Yeah, they would hit it off.
Yeah, you have to 100%. Let us know. Yeah, you have to let us know.
Cool, brother. I got one more question for you. So you've obviously spent the last couple of years, changing your life, and a lot of it was through running and this new passion that you picked up. What would you say running has taught you about life?
Oh man, the consistency, consistency over really everything. Like not every day is going to be perfect. There's going to be peaks and valleys, but no matter how yesterday went, like today is a new day. And you're granted a fresh slate to do with it as you please. And if you do that consistently for long enough, like you're going to keep headed in a positive direction and things are going to work out.
Fire me the fuck up. Let's go. That was a great answer, man. I love it. Good one to end on. Kellen, thank you so much, brother, for coming on. I appreciate you. If somebody out there isn't familiar with you, where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
KellenRunsPhilly across all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. That's KELLEN Runs Philly.
Love it.
Holler at me.
Appreciate you, dog.
Right on.
That's the pod. Thank you.
Let's go.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please do us a favor and subscribe, like, comment, share, all of the above. We're trying to reach more people who are interested in that casually ambitious lifestyle, and you're going to help us do it. Thank you so much. Again, we appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.